Now to the war in Ukraine, Russia attacking Kyiv with more than 600 drones and dozens of missiles overnight. It comes as talks between the U.S. and Ukraine over a possible peace deal with Russia wraps up this weekend in Miami. So let's bring in foreign correspondent Britt Clennon. She is live in Kyiv, and ABC News national security defense analyst Mick Mulroy. So Britt, let's start with you. What are you seeing on the ground in Kyiv, and how is President Zelenskyy responding this week?
Hey, Perry. Well, yeah, Russia unleashing another massive wave of strikes on Ukraine again this weekend, hitting infrastructure, a railway hub today in Kremenchuk, central Ukraine, causing power and water outages just 24 hours after a train station was struck just outside of Kyiv. Russia, we're seeing with these attacks on critical infrastructure, ramping up these attempts to cripple the country's transport links and energy supply. Now, this bombardment continuing as 3 days of peace talks wrap up between the U.S. and Ukraine in Miami after talks in Moscow we saw failed to yield any kind of meaningful breakthrough, with key issues remaining over territory and security guarantees for Ukraine. And, you know, I have to say the mood on the ground is not optimistic, especially with these daily strikes that we're seeing. President Zelenskyy overnight saying he had a phone call with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, saying they had a constructive call, covered many aspects to end the bloodshed, he said, and how to eliminate the risk of Russia failing on its promises yet again. Zelenskyy saying the parties agreed on next steps, but without giving any details on what those actually were. Now, we know that Zelenskyy, now turning to Europe, he'll travel to the UK for talks with European leaders on Monday.
And Mick, you heard Britt mention there are no real breakthrough in peace talks. Russia appears to be ramping up its attacks against Ukraine. So is Russia just using these talks as a way to make gains on the front lines?
So, Perry, that's what it appears. Quite frankly, until Russia sees consequences for its actions, it's going to continue the fight. And the International Study of War pointed out today that in the last 4 weeks, they have gained more territory than they did in the previous 4 weeks. So it's going in the direction they'd like to see it, around 257 square kilometers by my estimation. So they want this to keep going. They don't see the secondary sanctions. They don't see the approval of weapon systems like the Tomahawk. They still see their assets frozen in Europe to be frozen. They will continue having meetings, but they clearly are not interested in entering any kind of negotiations that would start with a ceasefire or end with anything short of what they want to get out of this conflict in Ukraine.
Mick Mulroy and Britt Clennon, thank you for your time.